So here's the thing about Avi Schwooper from Long Story Short. He is an incredibly complex, grounded, and realistic character, much like most of the cast of Long Story Short, but specifically provides an excellent depiction of the effects of overbearing parenting and strict religion in people as they grow into adults. The most prevalent aspect of Avi's essence, or at least what I got a major sense of in this first season, is his inability to admit his love for other people, or really share in intimate, emotional moments with others. As he grew up, his mother was rather overbearing with her love for him and her other children, often smothering them with I love yous and instilling intense pressure for them to say it back to her.
I love you, I love you, I love you, say it back.
Overall, putting a ton of responsibility on all of her children to show her how much they love her. Avi was the chosen favorite child for Naomi, I think, and so he received the brunt of her expectations and overbearing affection. I explained in the video about Naomi herself why she acts this way, as she believes that she will always be overlooked, ignored, or not cared for, which is why she prods those around her to tell her how much they appreciate her, or she just assumes that people dislike her when they don't adhere to her own personal beliefs and rules, all to basically remind her that she has a place in the family and that she has people who love her in her life. She ultimately needs to have control over her children. So, from Avi's perspective, she was just extremely domineering with her love, demanding that it be returned to her, and using it to try and mold her children into what she wanted them to be, without care for their own interests or their many, many protests.
Of course you can eat it.
He doesn't want to eat the cake, Mom. Okay,
Eat
this
the cake.
is
Eat the cake.
ridiculous. Stop.
Why are you trying to hurt me? Be a good boy and eat your mother's cake.
I'm sorry, God! I didn't want to do it!
Mom, stop.
If he doesn't want to eat the cake, he doesn't have to eat the cake. I just thought...
I know what you thought. Okay, it's what you always think. We're never the right amount for you. So you gotta push and nudge and adjust and correct.
Ultimately, it is a bit of emotional manipulation, even if she is not engaging in it consciously. And the effect that this has on Avi over the years is extremely visible, even in the very limited amount of content we have thus far. Right from the very first scene, we get a sense of how Avi tries to sort of emotionally care for his own mother, how he feels responsible to cheer her up, how he is always sort of walking on eggshells around her. After the funeral for her mother, Avi repeatedly tries to console Naomi as she complains about the service and the delivery of the eulogy and pretty much every other aspect of the situation. Overall, he sees it as easier to just go along with what she asks, lest she begin a tirade claiming that he doesn't love her or appreciate her, even though he is simply trying to have a conversation about what is making him unhappy about their relationship. This is also shown very clearly through how averse Avi is to criticizing his own mother, even on Jen, his wife's behalf.
Hannah cannot have a phone. One of us has to tell Mom to take it back.
Oh, and which one of us do you think that should be?
Over and over again, he's presented with conflicts between the two of them that require him to simply state the truth to Naomi about his own desires and his wife's desires, but he struggles to actually do so, resisting actually confronting her until he is basically forced to. It's a large reason why his marriage with Jen went downhill, at least from what we've been shown so far. He's afraid of upsetting his mother. As I said, he always tries to comfort her, not wanting her to fly off the handle, knowing that she can and will end up spiraling downward into self-loathing even after he brings up the smallest bit of discontentment, and that even the littlest disagreement will be taken as a sign that he doesn't actually love or care for her, and that nobody appreciates any of the immense amount of work that she put into her family. And ultimately, between his wife and his own mother, Avi will always choose his mother's emotional comfort, stifling not only his own emotions, but both of their desires as a couple as well. And as a result of all of this overbearing love, forced reciprocation, and smothering, when Avi is in his adult years, he's rather emotionally stunted as a person. He struggles to really talk about his feelings, to put what he feels toward toward others into words. And I think that might be why he enjoys music so much, as it is a way for him to connect with his emotions without really having to actually speak on them. The music kind of does it for him. The most obvious example of this is that he can no longer even say "I love you" to anyone around him. He never even says it back to his mother anymore, and he can't even bring it to himself to say it to his own daughter. He expresses part of the sentiment, but the words themselves that represent the emotion are so tainted that he can't bear to say them to anyone else any longer.
Hey. You know?
Yeah, I know. I love you too, Dad.
Come to think of it, we never hear him say "I love you" to Jen either, even when they're in a good place. The most she gets is an "I appreciate you," which might be another reason they ended up falling apart. He especially feels he has to avoid it with his own daughter, Hannah, as he doesn't want to instill the same sense of pressure and stress that he felt as a child. He even directly tells Hannah that she doesn't have to say "I love you" back to Naomi when she greets her. Really odd behavior looking at it from the outside, but it's so common for children to swing really far in the other direction from what their own parents did because of what they themselves experienced and their own desire to steer their own children away from that. I mean, the phrase itself is just completely ruined for Avi at this point and has really lost its meaning to the point where he just refuses to say it. For him, all that accompanies that phrase is obligation. From all the years that he spent placating his mother, shoving his own feelings deeper down, the sentiments associated with love aren't anything positive, or at least the word love. So he avoids that altogether. But love isn't the only emotion he struggles to express. I mean, he can't even really confront his relatives and engage in healthy conflict either, often bottling up his own emotions for the sake of his mother's demeanor. We see the damage this does in The Intervention, where Avi really has to be harshly coaxed into actually telling the truth and coming to his siblings' aid in being honest with their mother. Naomi even uses Avi's lack of protest as proof that she isn't overbearing, that she is a good mother, as Avi would tell her if she was being too much, because he has always been the one that was silent in his criticism of her conduct around her own children. And this line really gives us a sense that he has really never, ever spoken up before this point. He has been so quiet, just taking all of this subtle emotional manipulation for so long that really Naomi just assumes that he had never had any issues with her behavior, and thus that makes her behavior alright. Justified, even. But in reality, Avi is immensely frustrated with her and is extremely bothered by her insistence at forcing the children to act exactly as she would wish, and her inability to accept them as they are or anything they do as enough for her own standards. She always has to criticize them, and every time she does, Avi grows a little bit more frustrated with her. So years and years go by with this cycle repeating itself, eating away at Avi's marriage and his confidence in himself and his own abilities. And because he has spent so long covering this up, shoving his anger deep down, he doesn't really know how to properly express it to her. So instead of succinctly conveying how Naomi hurts their feelings about themselves and is currently hurting Yoshi, he is far too harsh and ends up directly insulting her as a person and a mother, and perhaps going farther in that direction of anger than he might have actually felt. It's just after ignoring every single transgression, when he finally broke down and had to fire back, when he reached his limit, everything he's ever thought came out on top of one another, multiplied by each other. And that's not really any sort of productive way to communicate with your family, nor is the person you're trying to get the message across to going to understand anything that you're trying to convey. It isn't until later in this episode, when he's calmer, that he is able to better dictate his issues, provide real examples for Naomi to draw from and learn from, and even be able to help her move in the right direction with this whole Yoshi becoming orthodox thing. He finally asserts to her that she needs to change, that he isn't actually happy with the state of their relationship, but unfortunately, there's not much time for them afterwards to repair and heal, as Naomi passes away just the next year, and Avi also divorces from Jen, so the damage to their relationship has kind of already been done. I hesitate to say it's too late, though, because it's really never too late to do this sort of thing, and even if Naomi only made a couple steps in the right direction right at the end of her life, it's still some steps in the right direction, and I would still advocate that it's good good that Avi at least talk to her. I'd also note that it's common for Avi to deflect with humor when people are trying to have a serious conversation with him, which he does several times in the aforementioned episode, kind of refusing to talk about his feelings and avoiding the actual topic of conversation by stalling with jokes. He often circles around the point rather than getting to it, and as I said before, isn't really fantastic at communicating what he actually wants out of someone, or in interaction. Nor is he really willing to engage in conflict very often. It definitely stems from his relationship with his mother, I feel. He is working at it, but he is, for sure, deflecting away from more difficult emotions, or the topics that he wishes to avoid quite a bit throughout this first season. Not only this, but he also has a specific aversion to being around his own family or being honest with them, sharing his life with them. In Hannah's dance recital, Shira condemns Avi for never checking in with her or their parents, or Yoshi. Even. He doesn't text, call, he's only visited her and Kendra one time. And generally, we get the sense that Avi, at least for a long period of time after he moves out, was not very present in his immediate family's lives. He built a new family for himself and distanced his life from theirs as much as he possibly could. Shira even states that their mother is afraid to ask him to come over or spend time with her because she believes that he will say no. Now, I think this has a lot to do with her own issues as well, but there is something to be said about the lack of attachment Avi feels to the family as a whole, and how he tries to minimize his own role as a member of the family itself. As I spoke about before, he spent a large period of time suppressing his own feelings and indulging his mother, and that type of strict emotional regulation and repression can be downright exhausting, especially since it's never really appreciated by her. In that intervention episode, Avi brings up the specific example of Hannah's baby naming, where he organized the whole event for her and even chose a name based on what she wanted, but Naomi complained about a song that he played during the ceremony that he didn't even really give that much thought to. He thought it would just be a funny thing in a ceremony that she appreciated because he did the whole thing for her anyway. He loves his mother, and he is definitely prone to choose her emotional needs over others, but it doesn't mean he enjoys it or would want to be around that frequently. Quite the opposite. And unfortunately, I think that feeling of annoyance and burden kind of extends to the rest of his immediate family as well. I will add that I do think there is a bit of development here, even across just this first season, as Avi is shown to be a bit more involved after this dressing down from Shira about his lack of contact. This is why it's important to remember that Avi is not complete as a person, and when I state that he has a certain trait, it doesn't mean that it is a permanent aspect of his character that we'll see for the entire duration of the show. It might be something that he's growing out of, and maybe season 2 will focus on different parts of him. He's still learning how to overcome what we've been shown that he learned from his childhood, and honestly, we really even haven't gotten that much context about his adult life post like 2020, so I think we'll see even stronger development from him on these fronts in the next season. But it wasn't just affection that he felt smothered by as a child, it was the entire lifestyle of his own home, including but not specifically limited to Judaism. We really get the strongest picture of this idea specifically in Hannah's dance recital, where Shira directly calls out Avi's internalized anti-Semitism. And Avi explains quite clearly how limited he felt by this religion growing up, and how much of a hold it still has on him in his adult life. He spent much of his childhood feeling ostracized from the people around him due to the requirement of observing these many traditions. As Shira says, it's a lot of surus, as in, yes, it is accompanied with a bit of baggage, but she personally felt it was worth it, and that her belief provides value to her life and the lives of her family. However, Avi never really understood any of it, not feeling that sense of community or structure that religion can provide some people, as we see with Kendra and Yoshi. So for him, the only thing it provided was the requirement of much of his time to observe these many traditions, which for a child who wants to be out in the world hanging out with friends can be pretty difficult, especially when many of their friends aren't restricted, as he feels that he is. He states himself that he never really believed in any of it, that all of these traditions simply feel like he's doing a bunch of random stuff, that it doesn't provide him any comfort, and that he doesn't feel like there's anything up there, no matter how many times he tries, too. When he does the whole mourning thing for his mother, as we see in the last episode episode after Uncle Barry's funeral. He wants it to provide some sort of comfort for him, but ultimately he just feels nothing from it, even if he wishes to.
I don't want to do Shabbat. We did it every week, and I never got the appeal of any of it.
Avi.
None of it works, you know? I did the mourner's Kaddish when Mom died. I covered the mirrors. I ripped the little ribbon. I did all the stuff. And it just felt like I was doing a bunch of stuff.
I think Avi is a great representation about how religion can't be forced onto anyone. And even within the family, everyone has their own preferences and belief systems that can be made and also ingrained in them from birth. His mother tried very fervently to attempt to get him to accept Judaism and to carry it on with him when he had his own children, but it just doesn't fit. And it never will. There's no amount of trying that will make it fit. And Avi's story is a great lesson to future parents not to force religion so heavily onto their kids, and to allow them to make their own choices about their belief systems and discover what they want for themselves. It's okay to show your kid what you believe in, but if they're not into it, if they don't want to do it, or ultimately get nothing out of it, I don't see any point in forcing them to go down that path, as ultimately, sometimes, like with Avi, it can just lead to resentment. He felt burdened by this religion, and as the years went on and he felt more and more isolated from the rest of the world, more singled out for who he is, his disdain for Judaism only grew and grew. And accompanied by this, there was quite a bit of fear instilled into him too. We get a strong sense of how exhausted he was with all of it this episode, partially thanks to the excellent voice acting from Ben Feldman, but he really conveys how scary the whole experience was and how it caused him a great deal of anxiety, being told over and over how much the world was out to get him. Having this hammered into him throughout his entire childhood and being forced to immerse himself in these extremely dark concepts before he was emotionally ready has caused him to enter the world as a rather fearful, anxious person. And this is why he has such a strong aversion to the religion now, calling it nonsense and steering his daughter away from it, suggesting it's ridiculous when she even brings up the idea of wanting her own bat mitzvah. He even spends Christmas with Jen's family, and while he denies that this is him celebrating in any way, it does sort of signal, at least to Shira, that he is trying to leave Judaism completely behind and actively loathes that part of his identity. However, I do enjoy how consistently he is against pushing any religion, as we see his frustration sort of extend to Christianity in this episode as well. But I also think it's a great sign of development at the end of this season with how accepting he is at Hannah wanting a bat mitzvah, because when she first brings it up, he was a little bit more, not like outraged, but shocked and didn't take it very seriously. His daughter is healthily exploring her religious ideals, and he is supporting that, as any parent should, even if it turns in a direction that they don't personally agree with. You know, religion is a funny thing. I think it's like, yeah, when you're exposed to a specific religion in your own household, it is more likely that you will take on that one religion, but I don't think that necessarily means it is automatically the one for you. Explore different ideas, find out what works best for your personal belief system, and don't force anyone to go along with you. It's a journey we all have to do by ourselves. Overall, though, Avi is an incredibly strongly written character, one who I feel has a lot more to offer in these upcoming seasons, but has already provided some excellent commentary about the repercussions of forcing love to be reciprocated from children, and also constantly criticizing, involving yourself in their life and decisions. Not only this, but he also offers an excellent perspective about the potential effects of a strict religious upbringing on children. It's not saying that Judaism is damaging as a whole, of course, far from it, as there are people in this show who find immense comfort in the religion too. I love how many different perspectives they offer. But they are merely bringing another aspect of religious life and its effects to the conversation, one which I greatly appreciated and I found very nuanced, and I hope y'all did too. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/PosiTVty. That's PosiTVty. There you get all these videos before they come out on YouTube. You get the unedited essays so you can hear all of my mistakes and the things I choose to edit out before I post them to the general audience. Plus, you could choose exactly what you want to see on the channel, and I will do it as soon as I can. But I appreciate you guys being here and watching this video at all, liking, subscribing, all of that wonderful stuff for the algorithm, hitting that bell. It's all great to me, and I appreciate any bit of support you're willing to give. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and try to do something nice for someone. Pay it forward, okay? We all need to be nicer to each other. See you later.